In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your stock size and zero position when you're using the cam component of Fusion 360. This is a segment of a larger video, but I decided to break it down into smaller chunks to make it a bit more palatable, so let's get into it. So we're going to navigate to the Manufacturer tab in the top left-hand corner here. We're going to go Manufacturer, and we're going to see all the toolbars up here change to our various toolpaths. First things first, we're going to click this file folder up here under the Milling tab. And that's going to bring up our setup window. So this is where we're going to tell the software all the critical information it needs to know before it can start generating toolpaths. And that's going to be what we're making it from, and where our 0 point's going to be. What it's done here is it's superimposed a piece of stock on top of our piece, and it's plopped our 0 on top and in the middle. And these are probably just the defaults for the software. It might be different for different users, but that's the way it popped up here. The stock, as it's projected, is just slightly bigger than the piece. And if we want to make any changes to that, which is exactly where we're going to start, we're going to go to the stock tab here. We're going to click that. And we're going to talk about two different stock options we're going to look at for this piece. The first one is what it defaults to. It's called relative sized box under the mode here. And what it's using to calculate the stock size there is the size of the piece, and then it's adding these modifiers to the sides and the top to determine a stock dimension, which it's displaying down here. So these can be adjusted, and we can add a little bit more or even a little bit less if we were crazy. But ultimately, what all it is a mathematical equation between the size of the part plus these modifiers onto a rectilinear prism, and that's how it's going to determine our stock size. That would work well if you're looking to make a piece of stock and you're trying to be efficient with your material usage. You might want to just add those modifiers and then produce a piece of stock to these dimensions. Typically, I use the second option we're going to talk about, which is the fixed size box right at the top here. This is where you tell it what the stock dimensions you're working with are, and then it will put the piece inside that. We like this one because you can enter in what the stock sizes are. I'm not confident enough to produce stock sometimes to 1/10 of a millimeter, as a relative sized application might require you to. So with this is a little bit easier for us. We can produce it to a millimeter. We can have standard block sizes that we use for a couple different parts, and we don't have to worry about it. You can enter in your X, Y, and Z heights all here, and it will tell you down here, it's just telling you what your model dimensions are, just so you're aware. Basically, all that's for is if you enter in any one of these numbers that is less than your model dimension, it's going to highlight the text red. It's going to let you know that there's a conflict there, basically because I put the X width for my stock at 150 when the model width on the X is 154. It recognizes that there's an issue there, and it's going to leave some of the part behind. So that's a handy little feature if you see red anywhere, and it'll give you warnings when you try and generate this that there is a problem. The other thing we'll see here in our options menu are the model position. As you can see, it kind of just centers it in the stock, it centers it laterally, it centers it in the vertical. We might want to change this depending on how we're fixturing the part or what we want to come off the machine. We might want it this face down here if I face milled the underside of my stock, in which case I would go to the model position under the Z height here. I would go model position, offset from Z bottom, and then what it's going to do is it's going to leave my piece right where it is, but it's compensated with this offset. So if I want it right on the bottom, I'm going to change that to 0, and it's going to move it right to the bottom. So I might want to do that if basically the part I want to come off the machine is going to be finished dimensions. Alternatively, if I was going to be fixturing and I had some vice jaws down here or something like that, I might want the piece sitting up at the top, and I'll face mill the rest of it off the back side later. I'm going to set that back down to offset from bottom Z. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to move on. So the next thing in our setup, we're going to go back to the setup tab here now that we're happy with our stock size and position around the model. The next thing we're going to do is determine our 0 point. It has defaulted the 0 point right here on the top in the middle, but that might not work very good for you. It's going to be kind of hard to zero off that point. So what you can do, as long as the origin drop down over here is set to stock box point, we can select any of the points around the stock. So that's the corners and various center points all around the stock. We can click any one of them, and we can use that as our origin point. Typically for us, we like a back corner. It's easy to zero the center axis of the tool in with that corner, and then we can just touch the end of the tool down to the top, and we can get our Z zeroed correctly. If you're working off a machine bed 0, you might want to be down here. For us, we're going to work here. and we're going to move on. We're done with the setup window. Without getting into too much more of it, we're just going to click OK. So now that we've done that, we have a setup listed here under our setup dropdown on the left hand side, and underneath this is where we're going to start making all of our tool paths. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you would like to know how to select a stock size that is not rectilinear, that is, it is not a rectangle or a square, I'm going to do a video on that as well. Situations like that do come up, so check it out.